Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London, and you can find me as Skeindeer on Instagram and Ravelry, but most of all I would encourage you to join in on the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, where we are doing all the knit-alongs and chatter and kind of helping each other out with all things, you know, colour work and Norwegian knitting and what have you. Related to that, I actually, because we already had the Norwegian knitting help desk, which is really good if you have any, you know, questions about where you can find Norwegian yarns. What am I doing with my hair today? Anyway, side note, there's this other thread as well, which has kind of just disappeared after I started it because I never announced it anywhere. I just kind of opened it and it just disappeared, like I said. And yeah, that is the kind of indie makers enabling thread, because I feel like we need a place where people can say when they have a product, a offer, a shop, anything that may or may not be relevant. Obviously knitting relevant, it should be knitting relevant. So if you have a business or a product or anything, you know, you selling yarn or patterns, stitch markers, project bags, you know, that is definitely the topic for that. Not everybody wants to send stuff away for free to have it mentioned on the podcast, and I think that's very understandable because you it's your income. So basically I think that is a very good thread for kind of getting your word out there. If you have a discount, a limited time offer, anything of the kind, then definitely use that thread to the best of your ability or something. I do of course have the Sarbu Mitten Club, which has come to an end. I showed off all the mittens in the last episodes. I think I will spare you that now, also because I'm on a bit of a... I got some limited time to record this. But anyway, that club has... well, it hasn't concluded, but all the mittens have come out. So you can now browse through all of them on Ravelry and knit all of them. And yeah, that is so cool. I might talk more about the mittens and my yarn experiences in a future episode, but yeah, right now a bit pressed for time. Also, I should probably comment on the studio lights. I got studio lights because I struggled so much with the light this time of year, so I don't know if the studio light is going to be a regular co-host but for now I'm actually quite grateful that, you know, my face isn't going to turn red and blue every time the sun pops in and out, although today is just completely absent. Like, it's just very dark. Another knit along I am hosting is the Julekveld mystery knit along, and the mystery has now been concluded, so I am very happy to be able to share with you the final mittens and what they look like. So these are the mittens in question. I made them in two different colorways because the first one was quite frankly in too low contrast, and I knew this pattern had more potential than what I could see, so this was the first take. It actually looks really nice with the studio light because it really brings out the little contrast that there is here, and I really did like it, but the cuff kind of did disappear and I wasn't quite agreeing with myself on the use of color and the Latvian braids. And this is the latest cue, guys. It's a little Christmas tree. Yeah. The pattern of the palm mirrors in the thumb. I'm quite pleased with the kind of method I've kind of arrived at to achieve this, because a lot of patterns tell you to just kind of do an afterthought thumb and then just keep knitting from the chart, and I find that really hard and it doesn't add up, because the opposite side of the color work doesn't really make sense if you're doing a afterthought when you knit from stitches and kind of the two contrast colors become one stitch, and that doesn't work and it's just weird. So I find this works really well. It really does seem to just kind of continue seamlessly. Yeah, I've done that with all my patterns. I just thought it was worth mentioning. Yeah, and so the other colorway I arrived at, which I liked way more, personal preference, but yeah, I tend to prefer these colors, but these really just made these mittens shine and really brought out the night sky and the sort of... I'm being ridiculous, but I am unusually proud of this pattern, if I may say so. So this is the other side, and again the palm pattern really just came to its own right with these colors. You know, high contrast is generally better when it comes to a lot of these kinds of traditional color works. You know what I mean. So yeah, there's a little festive tree. Again, I'm being quite sparse with the Christmas symbolism, but I still try to keep it in there because it is after all a Christmas mitten, albeit a subtle one. And yeah, I like these. So this heart is a braided kind of basket heart that we tend to decorate with a lot in Scandinavia when it's Christmas. They're quite fiddly to make actually, but I used to make them when we were kids, go figure. And yeah, and this is just to illustrate just how freaking dark it is this time of year, especially in Norway, and anything on that latitude is just dark. So I kind of wanted to convey that because that is part of it. And for me, pets are part of it. Christmas is when I get to come home and see my little dog babies. Yes, I am one of those people that refer to my dogs as babies. Of course I included cats as well, because some people have cats instead, or also. And I've had some people that have done just 2 cats or just 2 dogs, and I think that was a really neat and clever idea. How I thought about that, I could have offered alternative charts, but hey ho, there we are. So the mystery is over, but the knit along is not. So you just keep knitting until the end of the year. Same goes for the Mitten club. That knit along ends at the end of the year as well. And I have a related exciting announcement, which I will polish a bit later on, but it needs to be announced now, and that is that I wish to do a year-long knit-along. And I think that's going to be the name of it, year-long knit-along. The 2018 year-long colourwork knit-along, to be specific. It has to be within 2018, no ifs, has to be colourwork, and yes, it has to be proper mittens, like not ornaments or anything, like mittens that fit you. Or roughly, you know, it's supposed to be mittens. You can fit gifts. I will allow gifts. I just don't want to see like a bunch of baby mittens or anything. I want competition to be fair, so you know, adult mittens if you're an adult or what have you. Hopefully that makes sense. So we have 6 pairs of mittens, so an average of 1 colourwork mitten a month, because I think it should still be a challenge. And yes, I am totally like just ripping off the box of socks knit along, and I did ask Kristen before I came up with this idea, and she just thought it was ridiculous for asking, so I guess that means I have permission. So yeah, you know, with 12 pairs of socks, that is a challenge, and I'm probably not meeting that challenge. So I thought with colourwork there's an extra challenge just there, so I yanked down the number of mittens to 6. So 6 pairs of colourwork mittens in 2018. Are you up for the challenge? Yeah, the year-long knit-along, aka the 2018 year-long colourwork knit-along. It's just a bit less catchy with more words, yeah. Lastly, there is the Marius knit-along. This is the Marius pattern over there, but we're doing sweaters, etc. And that is going on. It's going on all winter, so I'll just leave it at that and move on to other things. I would like to repeat, of course, that I am doing Vlogmas, as I am sure you have noticed, but fear not, anything knitting related that is important will be included here. And that is why I have chosen to use this episode to announce that I have released this sock pattern. So this is the Cyber socks. I've debated about names a lot and what to call them, and I've in hindsight thought that my Cyber mittens don't have the most original name, but this is what they are. I mean, that was the idea. How could I kind of make a Cyber mitten into a sock? You know, there is kind of the stripy gusset here, the dotted palm that you very often see in Cyber mittens. So I kind of just move them around to make it into a sock instead. So, you know, this chart here you will very often see on a Cyber mitten. I've certainly knitted that into a mitten. It does offer you a set type of toe and heel and cuff, leg. Is it called cuff when it's for the foot? Anyway, but you can choose other things, of course. These parts are kind of independent of the colourwork itself, so you know, you can play around a bit. But I have to say, personally, I am very, very fond of this particular heel. It's just, yeah, I'm not gonna reveal anything, but I just think it's really neat. And as for the toe, any modification you do there is actually pretty easy to kind of work out with relation to the heel, because it's toe up. So you just, whatever you knit, once you get to this particular length that is relative to your foot size, you can just start working up the gusset. And once you have a gusset, you can work whatever heel you prefer, but obviously the measurements that I give will be with this heel in mind, which gives a lot of space for your little heels. And in the end, obviously you are free to choose whatever kind of cuff you want, and I chose this one because twisted rib is pretty neat. I will be recommending the Tuki wool sock yarn, but with a bit of a caveat, because I am knitting the biggest size that I'm offering, and it's very, very tight. It's very, very dense. So I don't think this yarn is going to work out that well for the smaller gauges. So for the smaller gauges, just use any sock yarn. You can use rustic sock yarns like those of Ovis, etc. Then it's so dense that I find that whether it's rustic or not, yes, it is better, but it matters less the tighter it's knit. And you'll see that we love colourwork mitts and mittens out there as well, that, you know, with the underwing mitts, for instance, they're not recommending rustic yarn, and that's not anything to do with the pattern. It's just generally when you knit as tight as I do with these kinds of things, you can get away with other things because you're not dependent on that stickiness and loftiness for it to be kind of contained. I still think this is the optimal yarn for sure, but I don't think you can go wrong with other yarns. When I do colourwork socks, I rarely get hold of rustic yarns even, so I use, you know, red yarn, opal and lang yarns and West Yorkshire spinners and that kind of thing. So there it is out. Yes, I will admit I have yet to finish the second sock. My test knitters have been very, very good and finished both of their socks, but I am not that good. And I thought, you know what, it is a little bit festive looking and you guys should have time to make it while we're still in this season and this holiday. So I decided to just let you have it now, because I know the pattern works. It's fine. I'm just being incredibly slow. Partially to do with marking. I'm marking 200 essays with 2,000 words each for university. And the only reason I'm recording now is actually because the website is down. The website with all the submissions is down. Thank you, university. Thank you so much. And so because I'm doing Vlogmas and using up all my battery, I hadn't to change the battery because, yeah, I'm not used to this stuff. But anyway, I want to, yeah, again, thank you so much for the lovely feedback I've been getting on my Vlogmas videos and for all your well wishes for me and my family. I don't have any news about that, but yeah, thank you. And so onto my works in progress. I have been working more on my, I guess, vanilla socks, the ones I knit in KnitPicks Felici in the Time Traveler colorway, i.e. Doctor Who colorway. They look like this. I'm very fond with how the heel is striping up and still kind of in a shock that I am doing self-striping vanilla socks. But anyway, the problem that happened is that there was a join in the yarn. And I don't mind joins. Joins happen and I am okay with it. I'd rather them give me a yarn with a join in it than throw away the entire ball because they had to tie a knot, you know. So yeah, I don't mind joins. But the problem, and I think this is the sock where it happened, is once I joined it and I kept knitting the red, suddenly I got a yellow stripe. So if I had joined it with a yarn I went the other way around and striped it the way I had just striped, it was backwards, essentially. So I had to fiddle with both of the skeins that I had to make the yarns line up, and I ended up using up a lot of yarn from one, and then I suddenly didn't have more for that, and I did the rib up. I finished one sock essentially. When I tried it on, I couldn't get the rib over my foot because no matter how elastic the cotton was, that didn't work out. So I was like, you know what, I'm having two problems here. I'm just going to rip them out and make them long-legged socks rather than stockings. So they are a bit shorter than they were last time you saw them, but they're equally short or long, if you will. They're still fairly long for socks. So all I have left is to do maybe 2-3 stripes of rib, and then I'll figure out a very, very, very stretchy bind off. I used the surprisingly stretchy bind off and that was not stretchy enough, so I don't know what to do because that is the stretchiest one I know of. I always find it too stretchy, like more stretchy than I will ever need, and now I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be a problem. My legs are a bit chubby, turns out. But hopefully it will help that I ripped out some, so we're not gonna be working that high up on my legs. Time will tell. So I don't have much else to add about these socks for the time being. Hopefully they will be done next time, and maybe there's a slim chance I will finish the box of socks. Although, probably no opportunity to photograph them all at once while I'm still in the UK. And I'm not going to bring all socks to Norway just because of that, so I don't know. Might have to admit failure or something. I don't know. I don't feel too strongly about this. We'll try again next year, right? So that last year as well. The other socks I've been working on are the blue rose socks. So as you've seen earlier, I have finished up one of them and I'm now working up the other one. So I got them this far. These are knee highs, or just below knee highs I should say. And I'm kind of halfway through the color work, and from there it's just rib. And the rib is the bit that slows me down. This bit I worked up in like such a speed I don't even remember. I do find it gets a bit, the color work is a bit short just because I'm doing circulars and that kind of yanks down the height for me. I don't know why, but yeah. I'm using the Fjord yarn by Hillesvåg. It's amazing. Just, yeah, it's funny, like now the tripod is actually casting a shadow on the everything I hold up because the light is behind it, because otherwise I get a very strong contrast on my face. So maybe I should have just gotten 2 lamps. I can't afford that. So yeah, this is Fjord. I'm just gonna have to look at it this way, hopefully get some focus or something. Oh, that's good. We can live with that. I'm okay with that. So Fjord is good because it is a rustic DK2 sport weight yarn with nylon, very strong, excellent for some thick, proper colorwork socks. So we'll definitely be revisiting that yarn in the future. As a side note, I've been taking in your wishes into account when it comes to future clubs. I think we'll definitely go for another mitten club next year. I think I like the idea of sticking to Norwegian mittens, but perhaps varying the yarn weights. I have a very concrete plan of how to do that now, and I think it's going to make people very happy, both those who are in the I like the quick and easy mittens camp and the people that want kind of a finer and finer weight as we go along camp. I think it's a pretty decent compromise. It is still a compromise, but I think it'll be good. I have toyed with the idea of doing a colorwork club, a very short one with a few pairs. I'm thinking 4 pairs, because really it's a matter of what I have time and capacity to do. And if I have the time, I will definitely do it, and I'll hopefully get it up for spring, but no promises. But hey, it will at least help me to get the whole box of socks thing happening next year, right? As for other things, I had a couple of people wish for more matching accessories as a club, and I really like the idea of having matching accessories, you know, hat, cowl, mittens kind of thing. But for me personally, I think that would do better in a bundle, a collection, rather than a club where everything comes out at once. So it's definitely something I'm considering. I just do it in a different format because that to me just resonates more with how I work. Now, I have suffered a bit of castanitis since I last saw you. Actually, this thing I had cast on last time we spoke on this podcast, but I never showed you because partially I'd forgotten and partially I hadn't really knitted that much. But I am working up a cable hat design. I had this crazy idea of like designing a bunch of cable hats for Christmas, give them to my friends and make them a bundle as well. I am way behind, it's probably not going to happen, but I'm working up one and I hope you can see it because the yarn is black. I've forgotten the name of the yarn, so I'll write that down here and I'll hold this up close and hopefully my camera will adjust so we can see. Oh, that's perfect. Brilliant camera, I love you. So as you can see, the yarn actually does pull a little bit. It is a commercial yarn, I think, but it still has a bit of pulling, which is interesting. So the design has this kind of braid that I've forgotten what it's called. It is not a Latvian braid. This is a non-color work braid that is a bit easier to work up, if I'm going to be honest. I just forgotten the name of it. Cables are quite thick and we got some twisted stitches and some purling, and it's pretty straightforward, quite frankly. I have a friend in mind for this hat. It does fit fairly well. If I can try it on my disaster of a hairdo today. My head is huge, so if it's snug on me, it will be perfect for anyone else, really. My hair day today, let's not discuss it. Let's just not. So that was one thing I did. The yarn is one of the yarns that I bought in Canada. I just forgot the name because I don't remember. It's the Sestari, that's the one. The one I don't know how to pronounce, so we're really not that much further into this mystery. Anyway, it's all written below. The other thing I've cast on is the Lady Marple cardigan. Finally, I wanted to make this thing for quite some time, and when I was helping out at Wallin Woolly this weekend, I couldn't help myself because that yarn was just staring me in the face, as it has every time I've come into that shop. And so I was like, the pattern says it's enough with 5 skeins for a cardigan, and the cardigan recommends that yarn, so for me it was pretty easy to just do it, really. So I got 5 balls of this yarn. Let me show you before I show you the cardigan. Here we are. So as you will see, I'm holding up 3. I'll just show you the label. You know, there are some things that this light is complicating for me, but there we are. And I'm sure you're wondering, why am I only showing you 3 balls when you bought 5, Ellie? Well, I have already started knitting this cardigan and it's knitting up so fast. I think this cardigan should be the next big thing in the knitting podcastosphere because it is so quick, it's mindless but interesting enough to keep you going. It is all the things we're looking for, and I've been kind of pitching it to myself as the Mercury socks of cardigans, or the cardigan of Mercury socks. I don't know. It's the lace is actually quite reminiscent of the Mercury sock lace chart. It's not the same, but it has the same intuitiveness. And so I'm going to show you. This is how much I worked up. It's nearly up to my underarms actually. I need about maybe hardly more than 4 inches. I'm going to say 3. Since when did I use inches? I don't know. Between 5 and 10 centimeters to go is what I'm trying to say, before I get to do the armholes, which I'm considering steeking. I have already, okay, let's talk about modifications here, because a lot of things have been modified. First of all, the pattern, the measurements the pattern gave me was a large, which I always find curious. This is the case with pretty much every knitting pattern that I do. I get large, which I'm okay with. It's fine. I go by bust measurements. I'm not offended. I don't, you know, it's a compliment. I'm just being ridiculous. And it's just weird because when I buy clothes in the shop, I always get medium. I can get quite comfortable in a large, and I can definitely wear a small. It's just not as comfortable. So it's a bit strange that these things don't seem to overlap, and I actually have a suspicion that maybe the knitting pattern standards are actually more accurate, but I don't know. There's this issue about vanity sizing and stuff. I'm not sure. So that was one modification that I did, was going from large to extra large, because for 2 reasons. One is that I want this to be quite roomy, comfortable, easy to put on, not just looking nice but feeling nice. And the other reason being that I couldn't quite hit gauge. I haven't actually measured now that I've knitted a good chunk, but generally for a 5.5 millimeter needle I get a 16 stitch gauge, and for a 5 millimeter needle I get a 18 stitch gauge on this yarn. And so getting a 17 stitch gauge is a bit of an issue because there is no 5.25 needle. So I decided to go with a slightly tighter gauge and figure out that if I'm doing the extra large, it's not going to matter, it will still fit because large already fits, you know. So even medium would fit. I would just be a bit, you know, I had to sit up straight all the time, because when I sit down it's like you know how it is, I kind of inflate a bit. And so yeah, this is what we have. So second thing I did was, when the pattern told me to do the 2x2 rib, it says to start and finish with the 2 knit stitches, and I'm like, but the first row is the wrong side. Like, even when the old Norwegian or twisted German cast on, it still has the wrong side, technically speaking. It's a bit more reversible than the regular long tail, but still, the first row you knit, if you knit flat, is the wrong side. So I started by purling 2 instead, and I'm very happy that I did. I've also slipped the first stitch because after all I'm going to pick up button bands here. I want it to be easy. So first stitch is slipped. As you can see, the second modification, if you know anything about this pattern, is that I am knitting this in the round. The pattern says to knit in the flat. To knit it flat. So I've added 5 steek stitches, and on contemplation I could probably just have gone with 3 because there are already stitches in the pattern, as you can see here, the other side, and now I added another 5, so it's a bit excessive, but it works out. And yeah, I think that was the last modification I did. I might also do that for the armholes. Generally, if you're gonna steek armholes, if I remember correctly, is to basically bind off the stitches under the arm that they tell you to, and then you cast on your steek stitches just over that. So it's a little bit like how you do a thumb hole. Fun fact. So yeah, it fits me really well. It's very a comfortable, loose, easy fit, but it doesn't look baggy or anything. It does have some waist fitting, which I guess is another modification I did as well, because I've gone with the length measurements for the smaller size, even though I'm knitting the second larger size, because even though I'm wide, it doesn't mean I'm taller, you know. Nobody said I was proportional. So anyway, Christmas cardigan, eh? I mean, look at that red. Isn't that the best, most festive red? I think it's just gonna be stunning. I mean, I might look like a giant tomato wearing this, or tomato, or whatever you say. This is not my language, I can say what I want. So I think we're good talking about this for now. Again, tight schedule here, you guys, and I've got a lot of things to cover still because, yeah, I cast on another project. I did. Oh, I forgot about the sock pattern. Of course it's a discount. I wrote that on the screen. If you didn't see that, just skip back. Anyway, the other project I cast on. Why did I do this? I just figured I needed some basic stockinette that is not magic loop when I'm marking, because I can read while I knit. I just, you know, when I have to turn a rows with magic loop, then it's a bit harder. So this is what I've got, and I'm not sure if I can say that this is a particular pattern, because I started out by using the dog knit dress, but because that's a free pattern I got when I bought this yarn kit. Essentially, that's kind of how it works. You only get that pattern if you buy this kit from Pickles in Oslo, which I did, and that was lovely. But I haven't used a single thing of that pattern. I've used a gauge, and I am holding the yarn double, and I might go by the bust measurements. Aside from that, I'm not following it at all. I haven't looked at it. So what I have looked at is the Fringe Supply Company's blog site of the improv recipe, which is a recipe of how you can start your raglan sweater and make it fit your neck and shoulder measurements, if you will. You literally just measure the width you want for the back of your sweater, and then doing some very simple algorithms, maths, what have you, you decide the rest of your stitches out from that, and you knit until you have the kind of length that you want, equivalent to short rows for the neck, where you cast on the remaining stitches you need for the front. And that's essentially what I got. I'm going to give you a little close-up, because this is amazing tweed yarn. But the tweed yarn is also the reason I haven't worked on this more than I have, because it's very hard to work with. It's 2 single plies of non-superwash merino held together. There's no springiness to it. I find it very hard on my hands, especially with a 5.5mm needle. Because for me, the higher up in needle size I go, the harder it is on my hands, which is funny because for a lot of people it's the other way around. You know, if you need smaller needles, it's a lot harder. That's not the case for me. But how festive does this thing look? Because I got these stitch markers that I got from the Great London Yarn Crawl at Nest up in Crouch End here in London. So it's got this amazing red burgundy and these snowflakes hanging off it. So I have 2 garments that are making me feel rather festive this year, and I think that is just awesome. So I think for now though, I won't be talking that much about this project because there's just not much worked on. I haven't worked that much on it yet. I will say though, this yarn is lovely, even though it's hard for me to work on and I'm not getting any focus. There we go, we can focus on the yarn. Even though, despite all of that, it's lovely. It's soft and it's high quality. It looks great. This whole tweedy look is very nostalgic to me. So I don't even know why. There's just something about the tweed look that has just grown on me and grown on me and grown on me. And perhaps it's just me that has lived in Britain for too long. But there you go. And yes, of course, it lives in my Marius bag because why wouldn't it? Now, these last 2 garments is a very nice and natural segue into a review that I've said I was going to do for a long time, and I am completely unprepared for this review, but that is usually when my honesty kind of comes out, even when I don't mean to. So I am just going to babble on about what I think about the KnitPro Zing needles that KnitPro so kindly gave me. And as you'll see, there are some needles missing because I'm working on this. Quite frankly, this is probably the nicest thing I can say about this kit, is that whenever I can, I choose needles from this. So I want to tell you when that is. For me, it's when I'm working on garments. This is garment needles for me. It's not when I do magic loop, because that's when I go for fixed charagoose. It's not for when I do shawls, because that's when I go for my higher. But when I do a garment, be it rustic yarn, color work, anything like that, clothes, I will go for these needles, no question, just yeah. So I'm using these needles both for the raglan that doesn't really have a name and the one with the tweed, and I'm using it for the Lady Marple cardigan, and it's a dream to work with. It's very comparable to one of my long-term favorite needles, the KnitPro Novas. In fact, that's kind of, it's not a critique, but they are very, very, very similar. I feel like to some extent KnitPro has just kind of reinvented those needles into being color coded. Slightly more blunt, not much, but a little bit, and perhaps a tad bit less slick. And I like it. I like them both equally much. You know, I think, you know, you don't always want sharp needles. I don't want sharp needles when I work on color work, for instance. When I do work with rustic yarns and do garments, the sharp needle can actually slow me down. I know, because I worked on the Miss Rachel cardigan that I'm doing in higher, and I realized when I was at the very end of it that that was where I was struggling with it. If I just gone with needles like these, it'd be perfect for that. So, you know, different needles for different purposes, and definitely if you want to get into garments, I'd really recommend this set. I do, however, have issues with KnitPro overall, because I often get that their joints and their cables pop out. Not like that they come untwisted, although that happens sometimes with the needles that I use the most, because I think they become a bit worn out, and perhaps I'm a bit sloppy with securing them properly. So I'll take some critique there. But no, I have issues with literally the wire itself coming out from the joint that then connects with a needle, so that they're completely useless forever, unless you have some amazing glue that doesn't become a problem. I haven't had that with the new cables that come with this kit, however, because they have new cables now that are softer, see-through and more flexible. So fingers crossed that's not an issue here. I have never had any problems with the cables that come in here. They're great. So, and it's really nice that they finally color coded them. I'll show you an example, because yeah, you can see the yellow cable in here. That's one of them. All the other ones are taken in my projects, because I really do enjoy this set, and like I said, I use it widely, and I think you'll see that, you will have seen that in previous episodes as well. One drawback is that every time I open this, you get that new car smell. I mean, if you like that, then good for you. But that smell is not going away. It smells really new. And I like the look of it. I feel like KnitPro has really upped their needles case game. So, do I vouch for this? Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it's affordable and nice, practical. I kind of wish maybe the places of the needles would have had actual tags that says, you know, this is where your 5mm needle goes, and so on. Some criticism that I have, that was not a very serious criticism, because sometimes you want that flexibility. But if there's one bit of criticism that I have that I think is quite annoying, is that it does not come with a 3mm, 3.25mm or 3.75mm needle. Because they don't make them lower than 3.5, but the Novas come in 3 and 3.25. So I don't know why the Zings can't do that, because they use the same cables. You know, it should be compatible. But there are 3.75 Zings, which I had to order extra because they don't come in this set. The other needles are included all the way up to 8. So from 3.5 to up to 8, minus 3.75 are included here. I just kind of wish they just include these 3 sizes that I'm missing, because they are very important for me to hit gauge. So, but if you don't mind buying a bit extra, or you don't need those needles, then that's totally fair. You know, Norwegian patterns never recommend the quarter sizes anyway, because they don't really exist there. So I think that's my review. Overall, really, really good. It's like 5.5 out of 6 or something, or however, whatever system you're using to rank things. We use 6 points in Norway. I think you use 5 stars here. Anyway, I like it. It has a couple of minor drawbacks, but overall it's nice, and I'm very, very happy that KnitPro sent me this, because otherwise I'd have to buy it, because yeah, I would have. Having said that, would I have done it given I have the Nova needles? Yes, because I keep buying extra Nova tips. I already have the full Nova tip, and I have the shorter Nova tips for hats, and I have the chunky Nova tips for chunky knits, and I think that's all I have. And I also bought the extra quarter sizes that were not included in the kit, as was not the 3mm there as well. It's the thing that KnitPro does. So given that I keep buying more because I keep using them and they're always occupied in some kind of project, and yeah, I actually think I would have bought it, even if I already have the Novas. But no, they're not necessary to have on top of the Novas. They do fulfill the same role to me. So I hope that was clear, but you can ask me any questions if you have that. I did a bunch of giveaways last week, and I will get to those and the winners in just a bit, but I actually have some giveaways this week as well, because people keep sending me their patterns, and whilst maybe the rest of the year I'd be a bit, I don't have time, I can't have the podcast full of giveaways. Actually, you know what, it's the giving season, and this week I'm very fortunate to have two very lovely knitty friends of mine offer patterns for a giveaway, so I am super stoked to be able to give these patterns away. And the first one is my friend Amy's most recent design, and I say most recent, her very first design. And now, you know, Amy could have done what I did and just kind of go, yeah, I'm gonna start by designing mittens and socks. No. Amy jumped in right into the deep end and designed a long cardigan with cables. It's so impressive, and people have been so enthusiastic about her pattern, and it's been quite successful already early on, and so I'm happy to just kind of boast more about it. Here's the picture in case you wanted to see that. And yeah, it's Amy of Amy's Little Kingdom, which is a relatively new podcast here on YouTube. She's a fellow Norwegian podcaster who speaks in English, although she's also half English, so that makes sense. And yeah, she's just absolutely lovely. I had the fortune of meeting her in Oslo at the knitting festival there, and I just hope you will all wish her welcome, a bit belated welcome to the knitting podcast community here on YouTube. I watched each and every one of her episodes religiously, definitely, and I think it's so cool that she has a pattern out. And yeah, there better be more, although I think there's already been another one. I don't know, I'm not that good at paying attention. So anyway, there will be a giveaway for that. I haven't decided anything right now because, like I said, a bit rushed for time, but there will be a link to the giveaway in the show notes, and there will be rules in that topic in my Ravelry group. And the same goes for the next pattern I have the pleasure of giving away, which is actually from another Norwegian English speaking podcaster, which is Emilia of the Arctic Knitting Podcast, who has the amazing Arctic yarn, which is hand-dyed Norwegian yarn. It's amazing. But anyway, Emilia has donated her new sock pattern, which is also an all-over colorwork sock pattern. And I want to say, like, if this is a bit intimidating for you, it's, you know, very, very dense gauge, can take a bit of time, then Emilia's pattern is right up your alley. It's, you know, thicker yarn, looser gauge, works up quicker, and yeah, so definitely hop on in the price draw for that. It's pretty great, and it's just kind of, yeah, nostalgic to me because it has a very Norwegian look to it and a very Norwegian construction method. It has that color work afterthought here that we call russesokker, and yeah, it just speaks to me. So I just want to say that there's a link for that as well in the show notes for the group where the rules are, because I will decide those whenever I have time to edit this episode and put it up. So thank you both so much for donating your patterns and for sending a copy to me as well. It's like Christmas already. So yeah, and now we'll be doing the winner announcement for the 7 patterns I have the fortune and privilege of giving away in the last episode. So the rule is the same for all of you to get in touch with me that you won, that you know you won, so that I know that the prizes go out to people that watch the podcast. And also because it takes a while for me to chase up 7 individuals, so hopefully you understand. And yeah, so the winners are, for each pattern, I will just kind of roll it out. For the Spellbound socks, the winner is NFLUX888. Not gonna try to pronounce that, but I'll put your name here. And the winner for the Pedulia socks, but on the eBay, it's Quiet Looper. And the winner for the shawl that Bearded Chill announced, which I'm also not going to try to pronounce, released, designed, made. It's Rose Vuko. Can't anyone have anything I can pronounce soon, but I'll put everything here. And then there is, oh god, Pabug Mag. And she won the Phobia shawl by Nordic Stitches, aka Lily, who also has an English language Norwegian knitting podcast. And then there is Angelic Embers, who won the Frozen Mystery by Lily. And there is Pugs12, who won the Silence shawl by Becky Sorensen, who is also a fellow podcaster of the Soprano Knits podcast. And then there is Poolside, who won the Winter Crown by Emilia of Arctic Knitting. Wow, Emilia's and Lily's been very productive. Anyway, congratulations everyone who won, and thank you so much for posting in that giveaway thread with inspiring photos of knitty goodness. So yeah, you just need to contact me. Send me a message on Ravelry, please. That is the best way, because things get very easily lost in the stream of other social media. So please stick to the Ravelry messaging system and just tell me that you won, what you won, because I may have forgotten already. Although I'll check in my notes. I'm not that far out. Anyway, congratulations. Hopefully that will give you a bit of an early festive feeling. So I think we can scoot over to my bed, because that's where my acquisitions are. You'll be familiar with the setting already if you're watching my podcast, and you can see my colorwork mitten calendar up there. Yeah, you've seen the, oh, what are they called? The Garland Mitten Calendar by Kathy Lewinsky, which is amazing, and it took me more than a year to finish. So, you know, it's quite a undertaking, but if you do choose to do it, then I would highly recommend it. Okay, I think this is the best setting we can do, albeit the light is a bit odd now, but it looks a bit more natural. So we've already covered this yarn as acquisitions, and I love it. I have only good things to say about this stuff. It's been such a treat to knit with. It's bouncy and just, it's classified as DK sometimes, but it knits up for anything DK, worsted and Aran, in my opinion. I want to say it's also, whilst not being comparable to Brooklyn Tweed Shelter at all, I think it would be a pretty neat substitute, because it has a very good stitch definition and bounce, would do well for cables, and it's light for the weight that it is. So I just love this yarn so much. Can you tell? Enabling, I'm sorry, I keep enabling. And I said I wasn't going to be doing so much shopping, and I haven't, but there is a story behind all of this stuff. Oh boy. The first story I was not expecting. I'm not really on top of my Ravelry messages. That's a thing we need to discuss at some point. But anyway, so it turns out that someone, I will write here if I'm allowed to, but someone was so kind to send me a bunch of Norwegian yarns that I got in the mail this morning. A bit confused, because I couldn't remember having ordered yarn to here, and I was like, was that order I placed in Norway shipped here? I didn't mean to do that. And then no, it wasn't. This is a completely different thing. So I got this huge bag of yarn, and I don't even know where to begin. I'm just gonna hold up all of it for you. So Gynt by Sandnes Garn. It is their lovely DK2 worsted rustic yarn, but it's quite smooth for rustic yarn, and quite frankly comparable to this. I want to say though that this is less generous on the meter edge, so whatever you work up with this yarn will be a bit heavier. Yeah, and I got that in yellow and in this kind of reddish brown, and I got it in navy blue. Oh, I don't know if this is more navy or just kind of blue but yeah, completely spoiled rotten with Gynt. Yeah. Whew. So I got more yarn. I got these alpaca silk skeins, also by Sandnes. It's about 200 meters per 50 gram ball. Yeah, and I mean the colors, you can kind of see why they ended up here. And I got some Tove. I got this kind of dirty pink, if I can call it that. I got this very bright red, which I think we have established today that I quite like. And I got this navy blue with the old labels that Sandnes used to have, like maybe 5-10 years ago. I get very nostalgic when I see them again. Anyway, Tove is very, very similar to Finul Garn and Ask and that kind of thing. Obviously I'm always team Ask because I love Hillesvåg and I would marry that mill if I could. Anyway, I really like this yarn as well and had very good experiences with it in the past, and find that it's very substitutable for the aforementioned yarns. So yeah, it's pretty nice. So, you know, when I try to just buy 5 balls a week, as if that's just, I end up with a whole pile of yarn in my bed anyway. So yeah. I also was really lucky to get these trees, which is so nice. So it's like it's Christmas already. I already said that, but yeah, it's kind of the feeling I'm left with. And the shopping that I've done, because of course I did, it's some book shopping. I think I have a bigger problem with knitting books than yarn. I think I've said that before, but it's really dawning on me. So I want to start with the latest thing I got, which I got in the mail today. Finally, because it's been such a struggle to get. I pre-ordered it and it should have arrived just before I'd gone off to Vancouver and New York, and it never did, and it's been nearly a month, and I'd contacted Amazon and said, I know you said that you didn't have it in stock and that I just had to wait, but I waited for getting close to a month now, and they were like, oh yeah, we should have cancelled that. And I was like, yeah, you should have. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll cancel it for you now. So I ordered it from someone else who sold it for a couple of more pounds, but that was fine because I got it today, and it's the Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible, which is incredible and just blows my mind how people can come up with this stuff. Let's give you a quick rundown of all the impressive, crazy stuff in this book. I have no idea how people can think of these things, because it's just so advanced, and yeah, I'm gonna need time to process this book, I think. In terms of recommending it, yeah, but it's very advanced. I don't even know if I'm ready for this. It's just kind of, yeah, but of course I had to have it because it's beautiful, and it's so exciting that finally a Japanese stitch book has become translated into English. Because yes, it is true that Japanese knitting books are very much chart based. You will see that here as well. It's just charts, very little writing. But the really big treat about this book is actually in the beginning, where all symbols in Japanese charts are explained in English, and it's a crazy amount of pages, so this is quite worthwhile just to have those couple of pages actually, because it's just so much that it's covered there that I don't know how I would otherwise be able to interpret, quite frankly. So very happy to have that book. The other little booklet that I got is Happit by Kate Davies, because I have to get everything that Kate Davies releases, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Because I mean, it's a book of haps. It's, you know, anything Kate Davies style is my style. I mean, in terms of what I'm gonna knit from here, I really like the Fantouche. This one, that's pretty nice. Although I'd probably do more garter for the edge because it does seem to roll up. And just in general, I love Kate Davies releases. They have a good chunk of history to them, which I love. So yeah, another Kate Davies booklet into the collection. I feel like this is maybe a miniature booklet more so than her usual booklets that are taller and have a bit more in them. So I hope that means there will be a booklet coming for Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Fingers crossed. Then I ended up buying the Shetland book by Marie Wallin after all. I had initially decided that maybe I wouldn't, because it doesn't contain things I'd put in my queue right away, although certainly in time I think this is going to be a gem that, you know, would withstand any trend. You know, it's pretty timeless. But it was reduced to half price at Wallin Woolly because someone managed to get icing all over it. So while it's completely usable, I mean, it does have some icing stains on it. So I just had to get it off their hands, right? You just like help them not have it in their shop. Yeah. So, I mean, it's an incredible booklet. It's stunning. And if you're at all curious about this booklet, I highly recommend watching Fruity Knitting's episode that they had with Marie Wallin, and they talked about the whole process with making this. And I mean, this cardigan is my favorite. And it's a story about how these little Shetland ponies appeared. It's just so cute. I think it was on their episode, I'm pretty sure. Like, I can't imagine who else it would have been. So very happy to have this, regardless of whether I'm gonna knit with it or not. It's just a staple in my library when it comes to color work. And I have to say, I am so happy that finally Marie Wallin is using Shetland yarns. She's not tied up with Rowan anymore, so she can just go out there and Shetland yarn all the way. And finally, and this book gets me very just excited, because it's a book that just resonated with me so much. I was not prepared for it. I'd heard it mentioned on social media a bit, but I hadn't really paid attention to it, because I don't pay attention to anything. I'm just like sitting in my little corner of the little niche things that I do. And turns out this was right up my alley. Had I just paid attention, I'd have known. And you know. So finally, Karie Westermann had released her book. She had her book launch at Wallin when I was helping out there, and it's called This Thing of Paper because it's a book of paper, and it's relevant because Karie's, to put it mildly, into books. And so for this to be a knitting pattern book with essays and related to what books are, what literature is, and it just really resonated with me so much, and I'm not sure how I can best put it into words. So what I will do is add the clip that was also in my Vlogmas episode to this podcast, because first of all, I have promised that you will not be missing out on anything I put in Vlogmas if it's knitting related, and that is definitely something that should go into this episode. So I think I'm just gonna let Karie Westermann speak for herself, and I'll include that clip at the very end of this episode. And I did ask her if I was allowed to, so she did say yes. So hopefully that will open anyone's eyes up to her work, because I think it's amazing, and it's like kind of where I hope to be 5 years from now. You know, with similar backgrounds, coming from Scandinavia and being in a foreign country and a couple other things. So I'm just kind of hoping that that can be me someday with a book with knitting patterns. So yeah, it was just really inspirational overall, and I was really lucky to be there. And so while I would love to talk to you guys for ages and ages, I really need to get out now because I have a bit of a knitty appointment, which may or may not be very exciting. I hinted about it last week, but it didn't happen then, so I'm going to try again now. And it is exciting, and we'll let you know what comes of that later. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're enjoying Vlogmas if you're watching that, but if not, fret not. I will come back with a podcast episode more times before the year is up. So I'll see you then. Bye.
First of all, I think this is very much a team effort. I've not done this on my own. I've had a team of people behind me. You've been there throughout the entire process of making a book, and it really feels like this is your book as much as it's mine. Thank you so much for showing up. And as I'm sure most of you will know, it's the first knitting book to be added to the Gutenberg archives, which is pretty amazing. And what I ended up with were 3 different stories really, and I want to take you through a couple of the designs and tell you a bit about how we worked on them. This one here is knitted in Dye Ninja camel silk, and it was inspired by the Lottrell Psalter. You've already heard the story, Catherine, I do apologise, which is in the British Library. It's a beautiful book. It's one of the few remaining medieval manuscripts that actually show peasant life. It shows women with rock spindles, men tilling the field, little dogs chasing birds. It's absolutely wonderful. And it also shows Sir Geoffrey Luttrell, a wonderful knight sitting on a horse, lord of the manor, lord of the land, telling the peasants he's protecting them, he's taking care of them, and don't upset the cart, don't be the monkey with the cart, because if you do that, bad things are going to happen. Stay in your place, know your place. And I would say when I started working on this book, this is when things started happening in the world around us, and I became very aware that me as a woman and as an immigrant, I've been told to stay in my place, don't upset the cart, don't have a voice, because if I do that, bad things are going to happen to me, and it's my fault and nobody else's. So I wanted to design something that actually made me feel stronger, and like I had a voice and I had agency and I had a right to be here in the world. And so I took and made an illuminated letter, a C, that I can wrap around me to remind myself that I'm allowed to be here, and I'm allowed to say no, and I'm allowed to say stop that, and that I am an author of my own book. And I kind of want you guys to take that emphasis as well and sort of say, you know what, I'm alright, I'm okay, even though people want to shut me up and say no, I'm going to wear this because I have the right to say no. So this is my little feminist anthem, inspired by a medieval knight. And finally, and this is a personal story more than anything else, this is a biblioteca shawl. I was born into a working class family in rural Denmark to a teenage mum, and not a lot of people gave me any chance to be anything in life. But I had a local library, and the local child librarian came to me and said, "Do you want to take out 2 extra books this week?" Which was the most amazing, fantastic thing. And that reading impulse, that sort of meeting with books at a young age, sort of made me realise that I could escape all the expectations that were laid upon me. And I'm standing here in a foreign country speaking a language isn't the language of my birth, and I'm looking at you beautiful, amazing, fantastic, strong women, and I can't believe that I'm here. Really, I promised myself I wouldn't cry, but it's all about books for me, and being in a library for me was my salvation. So what made me want to do this book more than anything was just a thank you to the people in my life who've encouraged me to read and to take up 2 more books a week and to allow me to come here and talk to you guys, and you smiling back at me, and we're all sort of brilliant, amazing people who make stuff, and making stuff is very important. So thank you all. I also find myself writing up against all those men with important titles and important suits and with footnotes, and me having to sit there and going, but I'm writing a knitting book. And that's equally as valid. So yes, thank you so much for coming, and I made it through without crying.
Yay!